Hi, welcome to the How She Made It Summit, everything that you need to know about becoming a wealthy woman. I am your host, Tiffany Scott. I'm the founder of You Me She Collective, where I help women connect with their uniqueness so they can create their in-demand brand. And today we have the most amazing Terra Christoff. Terra and I have known each other for, about 6 or 8 months now. And
Yes.
Terra is one of the most beautiful soul-centered women I know. She helps women connect with their soul purpose so they can become visible, thrive, and have a fulfilling business while making a difference in the world. And she really does embody that. So Terra, thank you so much for being part of this global series. You're such an inspiration to me, and I know you did an amazing summit recently, which I was so impressed with. So can you share a little bit about you, your journey, and your purpose?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited for our conversation today. And in terms of my purpose, well, let's see where to start. That's such a multi-layered question. But essentially, I was on a road to become a psychologist. I always thought that that was the thing I was going to do with my life at like 12 years old. I had a powerful experience with a therapist and thought that was going to be my thing. And while I was in graduate school, working with clients, and I was in grad school full time, I actually had an experience of feeling like, even though I loved working with people and felt my calling had to do with helping people in some way, therapy did not feel like quite the right expression of my purpose. So essentially, I found myself actually feeling, ironically, really depressed while I was, in graduate school. Had difficulty getting out of bed and knew that like something had to have been really off. So a friend of mine suggested that I had a summer break that I spend some time at a place called the Esalen Institute and just give myself a little bit of breathing space to see how my soul was calling me. So in that time, I really kind of stopped the busyness, because I think it's hard to listen to your soul in our culture that is so busy. And at that point, God, I was probably working like 50, 60 hours a week. So I just stopped. I stopped completely, and I started listening to my soul. I started connecting to creative interest I had with theater, with expressive arts, and something was just telling me I needed to shift and go in a different direction. And then that was like 2001. I met a coach and learned about the coaching profession, and felt like a real calling to head in this direction. So I did my coach training at a great place called the Coaches Training Institute. And the rest is history. I really felt like I found my purpose, and that was wonderful. And then of course there was the whole business side of things, taking what you realize to be your purpose and turning that into a viable business. And that part was a little more challenging than the client work, for sure.
Yeah, and so now you help women connect with their own purpose and build a business around that as well, like exactly what you've done. And you've been very successful in your own business and helping other women in their businesses. So what would you say to women that are on the journey of like, there's something missing, I want to find something more in my life. I know that what I'm doing right now is there's more to it, right? That I think a lot of women are starting to experience. I'm witnessing so many women start businesses and really step into their purpose work. So again, this is going to be a loaded kind of question, and I know there's so many elements to it, but what would you say to people that are on that journey and really want to create their purpose work as part of their business? How to start?
Yeah, so I would say first, really do the inner work of purpose inquiry so that you are really getting clear on what your purpose is, what your zone of brilliance is, what are your unique gifts, as well as, the things that may come naturally to you, skills you may have, but might not actually be the thing that's calling you. Because sometimes, we have great skills, but they're not actually what lights us up. So it's really important, I think, to do the inner work to become clear. And why I say that is because I have seen people kind of jump very quickly, go, oh, okay, I have this idea. I just want to get started. I want to get my business off the ground. And then kind of regret that they hadn't spent more time on the inner work piece, so that they were really creating a business from their soul, from the inside out. So I do want to say, like, that work is really valuable, and it will really create a solid foundation for the business that you ultimately birth. So I think that that's a really vital piece, is doing the purpose inquiry work, so that you create a business that's aligned with you and also aligned with the lifestyle that you want to be living. As you're sharing, Tiffany, it's like, this is an exciting time on the planet with online businesses, with platforms like Zoom. I mean, the world is our oyster, and we can essentially, create anything we want, but we have to ask ourselves some bigger questions too, like, am I making a difference in the world the way that I want to? What is the vision I want to have for my life? Do I want to travel? Do I want to have babies? Do I, whatever your thing is, you want your business to really reflect your lifestyle. So it's really worth it to kind of, start from the inner work, and then really land on, the pieces that are important for growing your business, things like sales and marketing and branding, which of course, you're an expert in that, and that work is so valuable. But you really need to know who you are. And one of the places we really resonate is, like, you want to be authentically you. Don't try to be anybody else. Like, really focus on what lights you up, and finding that intersection between what lights you up and what the world needs. Because really what the world needs is more people who are being their authentic selves, doing what they came here on this planet to do. And I believe if you're watching this, you have a purpose, and nothing is more important right now in our world that women step into their power and into their purpose and change the world. Like, now is seriously the time.
Yes, and I love how much you light up when you talk about this, because it's your work and it's your purpose work, and you lead people to step into that. And what I really connected with, well, I connected with everything that you said, but there was one piece that you said that I really, really loved, because it's about, yes, it's going inwards and finding the silence and doing the soul searching. But there was something you said that I think a lot of people say differently, and I agree with you, is that maybe it's not something that you're skilled at. Maybe it's something else, because often we're told, do what you're good at, right? Like, just go and create something that you know that you're good at. But sometimes we're skilled in something because we've taken a path, like we've gone to university and we've studied this and we've created a skill, and therefore we become good at that. But often, if we don't go on that soul searching mission, we forget the place that we're naturally, innately good at, and that lights us up. And that's what you're saying, which I really love, because that's a difference between some people that say, just find what you're good at and create something that people really need. But it's something so much more deeper than that, because we have these innate gifts and skills. We've had these experiences that we've been through, like you thought you were going to go and be a therapist or a social worker, a therapist, I think you said, and then you went into a deep depression because you're like, no, that's not it. But I think what allowed you, when you went through that depression, is to come into the silence as well and find, like, okay, what I want to do. And then it's one path and then the next path and the next path. So I just loved everything that you shared, but that little piece, I was like, yes, that really, really resonates. So
could I add one more thing?
Please.
Not to interrupt you, but I feel like it's really important in terms of what you're sharing. It's like, oftentimes there are potentials within us, like there's an evolutionary potential, like your soul is calling you in a particular way. And there may be capacities and skills that you have that are like wanting to be called forth, wanting to be birthed. And a business is really like a PhD in personal growth, because it's going to grow you. And so I think sometimes too, it's like a matter of like listening and moving forward in a way that may feel unfamiliar, but that something is calling you, and that the woman you're going to be a year from now, and the skills and the capacities and the ways that you've evolved and grown is going to be so much greater just because you haven't stepped into the initiation yet of starting your business, or sometimes it's evolving your business in a way that's really aligned with your purpose now. Because our purpose, I think, it's often this like similar when you get to the core of it, but it evolves as you evolve. It's going to take different forms and different expression, and you want it to feel dynamic.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely evolves because we evolve, and we always have to evolve. So as a coach, as a business leader that helps women connect and then grow their business, what are some of the ways that you help women really step into creating wealth in their life? And so this is a two-part question. What are some of the ways that you help them create wealth in their life? And then the next question is, what do you consider to be wealth?
Yeah. So when you ask that question, the first thing that comes to mind is supporting women to really value themselves, because I think that it's hard to sell your service or your product or whatever if you yourself are not standing in the value. And I feel like an additional layer that is challenging for a lot of women, and part of why I'm saying a business is a PhD in personal growth, is oftentimes your service has like everything to do with you and who you are being. So it's quite vulnerable, really, to put yourself out there in the world and to step into your value, like especially if it's not a widget you're selling, but it's a coaching service or a transformational offering that you have. So I find that the work I do with women often really involves stepping into a deeper level of self-love, of self-value, of compassion for our humanity, of the recognition that we are going to make mistakes, and that's okay because they're not really mistakes, they're just learning opportunities. So all of that I feel is really vital, as well as really looking at your relationship with visibility. Because as women, since the beginning of time, it's been challenging for women who are visible. I mean, they've literally been burned, at the stake for being different, or to have, for expressing things in the world that were not part of the norm and, the cultural norms, if you will. So I think it's really important to connect to what is unique about ourselves and the message that we have, and to really stand in the value of that message so that we can powerfully communicate that to our prospects or our customers. And it all ties in with money, because in a way, what are people paying you for? They are paying you for the value that you're bringing to them. And I think that is helpful to remember that, because one, it kind of, it's very much a paradox, because on the one hand, it is you, but it's more than you. It's that service that you're bringing. Oftentimes it's something that was part of your life's journey for a lot of women that they're, now able to share because they've lived through it, or perhaps it's a gift or, something in your zone of brilliance. But the more that you can connect to your value, but at the same time, not feel like, this has been a big one for me, like that my self-worth is tied to whether this potential client says yes or no to me. So it's like this interesting space you need to be in of like owning your value. And if you feel like it's a fit, sharing that, but at the same time realizing like, your value is infinite. Like, you are an amazing human being, and there's a million reasons why people may or may not buy from you. So it's important to realize that like your value is priceless, in a sense, because you're a beautiful being, and it's like, it's not just about like the financial bottom line. So I guess what I'm getting at is definitely a paradox, and I hope I was able to.
Yeah, you did a great job. And I think it's something that a lot of women are really challenged with, is like when you're doing your purpose work and it really is you on the line, well, that's how you feel, right? And even though it's coming from a higher power and a higher source, and you're being guided, and it's bigger than you, it still feels like you're putting you on the line. And people, if they say no, then they're not buying from you. And there's so much self-development and work that we need to do around that to really step into, I have gifts, I want to share this, and I'm allowed to monetize those gifts as well, because the more money I make, the more I can give and share and prosper and be an example as well. And I totally get you. It's a paradox. And I think it's something that every time we reach our growing edge, then there's the next thing of like, oh, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm ready to charge more because I'm burnt out and I don't want to charge that anymore. So we go through that, and then we're like, you know what, I'm going to up level. And there's always like that kind of growing edge of like, oh, are people going to say yes to me? So I think the wealthiness comes in, like you said, really owning who you are and the value that you bring. So what else would you say wealth means to you?
Yeah, well, it means abundance in all of its forms. I think of wealth as way beyond monetary, although of course that's important because, you know, as you said, it's going to help our lives be more fulfilling, and it's going to help us make a difference in the world by supporting, you know, businesses and products that are in alignment with our values. But I think for me, it's like time abundance, the ability to work with the people who I really feel like a soul calling with. It's just abundance in all of its forms, and including creativity. I think that's something that has really been coming in for me recently, that I want my business to feel creatively inspiring. Like my business is a work of art, and it's an incredible thing to have, you know, the freedom that we have as entrepreneurs. And I definitely think that that's a form of abundance for sure. You know, being able to use our time the way we want to, being able to take vacations when we want to, being able to give to organizations that we really believe in. So yeah, to me, it's like multi-layered what abundance means. And I think it's different for every woman. And I'd encourage anybody who's watching this to really ask yourself, and go way deeper than money, and ask yourself, like, what does abundance look like? What does success even look like? Because I feel like a lot of women are, you know, kind of swallowing like the culture's definitions of success, or maybe, you know, somebody they really admire. It's like, oh, that person, they're successful and my success needs to look like that. Yeah. But honestly, it's like the more you're connected to what your truth is, the more successful you'll be, and it'll be on your terms. Because I've seen people sometimes create really successful businesses, but they have values around freedom and time that, you know, that they're not like living anymore or embodying, because they just don't have time for their partner, or they're stressed around their kids because they're working all the time.
Yeah.
So you really have to check in with your values.
That's true. And I think in a world where we live in this opportunity where we can compare even more, right, through social media and Facebook or Instagram or whatever you follow, and everyone's living this perfect life for the most part, and then we get into comparison mode of like, well, why can't I have that, you know? Where really what we're doing here throughout this whole series is lifting the veil of like, we're all got our stuff going on, and it's not always easy. And to your point, reflect on what's really true for you, because your path is going to be different to those of others. And if you stay on your path, you're going to have that wealth, you're going to have that success, you're going to feel that abundance, you're going to have that time and that freedom. So I really loved what you shared there. Is there something recently that you experienced that felt like a real hardship or a hurdle or a pain point where you knew that it was serving you, but it felt hard anyway, and you kind of came out the other side of it, and it was a really beautiful lesson?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely transparent, since you were on the summit, it would be my summit. So I feel as though it was successful in terms of outcomes, and I'm passionate about interviewing people. Like, it felt very aligned with my purpose. What was probably not as aligned is, I think I had too many people. Like I mentioned to you privately, Tiffany, I had a day where I did 7 interviews. Yeah. I was exhausted by the end of the summit. And you know, and I'll preface that with saying, I actually feel I am somebody who's pretty good with boundaries and self-care. So it really surprised me. And I honestly was like quite depressed on the other side of it. And I realized something for myself, which is that Winter, I did the summit in winter, and I feel as though for me, winter is actually moving forward going to be a time when I go inside and recharge my battery, and I will save things like a big project, like a summit, which is huge amount of work, 100, like
It is.
more than 100, like 500 little details, a ton of details. I'm going to do that kind of stuff in the spring, where I feel like there's a natural, like more like launch energy, or definitely not in the winter. I'll just say that. I want to, live more in alignment with the seasons. And I was off my natural rhythm, to do that. And I feel as though it wasn't, I had like a few weeks of being depressed afterwards while my summit was launching. And I hadn't been that depressed, in many years. So it was a big wake-up call for me on the importance of really honoring, first of all, your natural rhythms, to not taking on too much. I think my next summit will be smaller and more thematically focused, and I'm okay with that. Like that I think works for me. So I'm going to like learn from that experience, and it's going to be applied to my next summit because I love doing it. But it's like I got that the form of it needs to change, and it needs to be, what's actually gonna work for me better, and the timing, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a big wake up call. And on top of that, I was going through, I had a relationship that ended, maybe 6 months, I don't know, like June. So about 7 or 8 months ago. And I think I hadn't fully grieved that. So it was like a confluence of things. And I'm ultimately glad that I, allowed myself time to do some of that inner work. But that's, just to be real, like that's a challenge when you're a business owner. There are going to be times where, you move, or you have a miscarriage, or there's just, challenging things that are going on in your life. So it does become like, how can I show up for the thing that's in front of me, of course, because I have this launch and it needs to, move forward. And at the same time, honor my self-care. So I did start like taking a lot more baths and, doing things that were nourishing for me, and cooking soups and hanging out more with my dog, and, all that kind of stuff that I really needed at that time. So it was a wake-up call for me to kind of go back to my center and allow myself to slow down and be in the energy of winter, and realize life is not an endless summer or spring. Sometimes the deepest work we do is actually in that winter season. And by winter season, I mean like our inner winter, because oftentimes that's the deep root work that we need to do in order to create the spring.
Yeah, the hibernation. That's thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lesson in that for all of us to really honor our cycles and where we're at, and not push and force. And I know how much work these summits are. I can't believe you did 7 in a row. This is my 4th, and my interview before this, I was telling you I was tongue-tied and I was asking questions and that were clear, and it's just totally. This summit's all about being real. So and I always love your authenticity. So thank you so much for sharing that, because we can always learn through each other's vulnerability and our pains and our journey and our openness. And I think the world is calling for more authenticity. So I've got 2 more questions. The second last question is, who inspires you?
Yeah, so the person who comes to mind is Claire Dubois. She was one of the people I interviewed in my summit. She founded an amazing organization called Tree Sisters. Yes. And I love that they've planted over 1 million trees, and that they're really drawing from principles of feminine leadership, like earth-based feminine leadership in their organization. I find it just to be amazing, the work that they're doing both on the inner level and the outer level. It's deeply inspiring to me, to the point where I give a percentage of my business proceeds to the organization, because I deeply believe in their work. And I think that's something, we can do as business owners, is we can give back to the organizations that really speak to us, or find ways to partner or align with them. I mean, there's really an infinite amount of ways that you could do it. But again, it goes back to what I was saying about your business is such a source of creativity. Like, you can create whatever you want. So it's like, why not create, making a difference in the world for an awesome organization as part of your business?
Yeah, yes, yes, absolutely. The more money we can make, again, the more money we can make, the more we can support other causes and charities and people that we really feel connected with. And I know that you're really connected to the earth and the way that the earth functions and vibrates and really supports us in giving back to that. So I love that. So you have a free gift. Can you share a little bit more about that for us?
Absolutely. And before I do that, I just want to acknowledge you for a moment, because you helped me so much in that branding exercise we did to see that Earth was a core value. I thought, well, like, God, that's kind of weird. Is that really a value? I'm like, yeah, authenticity. That's, I had all these other things, but you were like, no, Earth. And I think it is so important for us all to really design a business based on our core values, because that's when our business is really fulfilling for us. So I just wanted to
Oh,
honor you, Tiffany, in that whole conversation, because your work is very valuable.
thank you.
Yeah. And so the free gift that I have is a quiz that I recently created. And it's going to help you really see like what is getting in the way of living your soul purpose in your business. And it's really valuable. There's like kind of 3 different phases that I see as being really important for you to step into your soul aligned business. So it only takes 5 minutes, so it's not like a big deal, but it's really going to give you some clarity on where you're strong in terms of living your soul purpose, and places where you might be a little bit, weaker. Like maybe it's, masculine and feminine business strategies, or, maybe it's marketing, or maybe it's not being clear enough on your purpose. So you're not actually, feeling super passionate about what you're doing, and you might want to look at shifting that. So this quiz will really help you to get clear. And there's also an invitation there to apply for a soul purpose strategy session with me if it feels like it might be a fit and you're wanting to do the deeper work of really stepping into your soul aligned business.
Yeah, I highly recommend that you take the quiz and take advantage of the soul purpose strategy session with Terra as well. She's a really genius and can help you connect on a deeper level. So please do that. Take that opportunity. So one quick last question. What makes you happy dance? What makes you super happy in an instant that, if you ever need to lift your vibration, you can just quickly go there?
It's hiking, 100%. Like the sun just came out today. It was like a long winter here where I'm living in Asheville. I'm actually moving back to California, but yeah. And then like today I went hiking and I was outside in nature and I was like, this is my happy place. And when I was in California, I was at the ocean, and I don't know. I'm a nature girl. I get really blissed by like being at the ocean or hiking. So absolutely my happy place is in the woods.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Yep, getting back to nature gets me every time as well. Thank you, Tara, so much for just
My
sharing
pleasure.
them and your insights and your knowledge and just radiating like you always do. It's always so great to just see you, and thank you.
So much fun. Thank you so much, Tiffany. This has been a great conversation and I love what you're up to.